Okay, I wasn't able to fix my headphones, but I'm going to try to just do as much as I can before the headphones die on me. So I'm on page 14 of Othello now. This is the part after Othello has made Cassio, and Rodrigo attacked Cassio, and Cassio attacked Rodrigo back. Iago got him drunk, and then he gets in a fight with like the mayor of Cyprus, embarrassing Othello, and then Othello fires him. And then Iago goes to make Cassio feel better, which of course he's not really going to make Cassio feel better. He's going to manipulate Cassio, but it seems like he's making Cassio feel better. And Cassio and Iago are talking, and he says, oh, I got drunk. He says, I can't believe it. And he says, listen, it's okay to get drunk sometimes. And then he gives him advice. He says, our general's wife is now the general, right? Meaning, if you want to get him to like you again, right? Our general is in charge of us, but who's in charge of him? His wife. Our general's wife is now the general. I may say this. I may say this so in respect, for he hath devoted and given up himself to contemplation, mark, and denotement. Right? He's of her parts and graces. Right? Othello pays attention to her now. So he gives him advice. He says, confess yourself freely to her, importune her to help you put in your place again. She is of so free, so kind, so apt, so blessed a disposition, that she holds it a vice in her goodness not to do more than she is requested. Right? She's such a nice person. She will do whatever it takes to sort of get you your place again. And by the way, this is true. Iago's right. One of the things Iago does is he says things that are true, but he uses the truth in sneaky ways. Desdemona is really nice, and if you ask Desdemona for help, she will try to be as helpful as possible, which is why you see in the play, she bothers her husband over and over again. Can't Cassio get his job back? Let's talk about Cassio. Made Cassio such a good person. He loves you so much. And of course, every time she opens her mouth about Cassio, because of what Iago's told Othello, Othello thinks, why is she talking about Cassio so much? It's like she's obsessed with this dude. But the point is Iago is very good at reading people's psychology. He knows Desdemona's really nice, and so he encourages this. This broken joint between you and her husband, entreat her to splinter. By the way, really simple metaphor. This broken joint between you and your husband, entreat her to splinter. It's a metaphor. Cassio's relationship to Othello is compared to a broken bone. And what do you have to do to a broken bone? You got to put the pieces back together and hold them there so it can heal. And Desdemona is the person who will do the healing. Very simple. We're comparing Desdemona to a nurse, really nice and easy, or a doctor. And he tells him this, you advise me well. I protest in the sincerity of love and honest kindness. Again, you see the irony because he's a terrible person. I think it freely, and betimes in the morning I'll beseech Desdemona, you are right, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then he leaves. And Iago does one of his other big speeches where he's by himself, and this is always the most interesting bits. And this is one of his funniest bits. You got to try to find the humor in here. He says, and what's he then that says I play the villain? When this advice I give is free and honest, probable to thinking, and indeed the course to win the more again. For it is most easy the inclining Desdemona to subdue in any honest suit. She's framed and fruitful as the free elements. And then for her to win the more. So he's joking, but he says, like, who says I'm a bad guy? I'm not a bad guy. I just gave Cassio really good advice on how to get his job back. And what's the big irony is, it is good advice. This normally would be exactly the way for Cassio to get his job back. So he's like, I'm not a bad guy. I just gave that guy a bunch of good advice. But of course, he's going to twist it around. So he's going to make it seem it would be good advice under normal circumstances, but it will not be good advice in the circumstance that Iago is going to be telling Othello, hey, I think this guy's fucking your wife. But if he didn't do that, it would be great advice. He says, part of what you got to remember there is that's a moment where he says, who is it that says I'm a villain? I just gave Michael Cassio good advice. Imagine it in the theater. He's talking to Cassio. Cassio leaves. And you, the audience, are like, oh, he's fucking with that guy. And then he turns to you and he says, why do you think I'm a bad guy? I just gave Michael Cassio a lot of really good advice. I'm really helping him out here, basically. And again, the irony of thinking he's doing a good job, joking around about doing a good job when obviously he's being quite evil. But he really understands people. His soul is so enfettered to her love that she may make, unmake, do what she lists, even as her appetite shall play the god with his weak function. Like, again, simple metaphor. Desdemona to Othello is like a goddess to Othello's weakness, that she can kind of control and get him where she wants to go. How then am I a villain? To counsel Cassio to this parallel course directly to his good, right? I'm being a nice guy helping him out, but of course he's not. And then he switches back into his natural self. Divinity of Hell. When devils will the blackest sins put on, they do suggest it first with heavenly shows, right? When people want you to be sinful, they often act all nice and pretty. Devils don't look like devils. If they look like devils, you'd be like, oh shit, you're the devil, I'm not listening to you. But when they pretend to be angels, then you're like, oh, this is a good idea, I'm going to do what this angel said, and it's a trick. Again, everybody thinks Iago is a nice and honest guy. For while this honest fool plies Desdemona to repair his fortune, she's talking about Cassio there, and she for him pleads strongly to the Moor, I'll pour this pestilence into his ear, that she repeals him for his body's lust, and by how much she strives to do him good, she shall undo her credit with the Moor. So will I turn her virtue into pitch, something black, and out of her own goodness make the net that shall enmesh them all. So he says, like, while this idiot, and he just describes his whole plan. But notice the line, I'll pour my pestilence in his ear. This is, I think, in terms of ideas, is a metaphor. Iago's words are like poison. And this is also one of the play's big ideas, which is words can affect the body just as much as poison can affect the body. And that Iago doesn't need superpowers and laser beam eyes to destroy great men. He just needs to talk in their ear, and he can convince them of things. The power, one of the ideas in this play is the power of words. How did Iago get Desdemona to fall in love with him? He spoke to her, and she was moved by his words. And again, they compare, her father says it's witchcraft, but it's not witchcraft, it's just language. And Iago here compares words to poison. Just remember that it is Shakespeare is the one with the powerful words that he uses to put in your ears that make you, just that Iago can tell things to Othello, and Othello will feel jealousy. Shakespeare can use words, and when the words get into your ears, you'll be crying over the death of Desdemona. It's a strange metaphor, but there is a metaphor to be found. Shakespeare, and is Iago a metaphor for Shakespeare? What do they have in common? They both use words to control people's emotions. And that is really one of the most interesting metaphors in the entire play, because you think about Shakespeare as being the greatest artist who ever lived, and Iago's the worst villain ever, but they have quite a bit in common, actually, Shakespeare and Iago. And then Rodrigo shows up, and he's, flipping out, and he's very angry, and Iago tells him to kind of calm down. And gets him to kind of feel better. But there's a line in here that I absolutely love. He says, by the mass, meaning truly, 'tis morning, right? Because it's all happened at night, now the sun's coming up. Pleasure and action make the hours seem short. Pleasure and action make the hours seem short. This is a game for Iago. He's having fun. Time flies when you're having fun, says Iago. He's having such a good time. He can't believe it's already morning, because he has all these evil plans and they're all working out great, and he's so happy. It's going really well. So okay, we got some ideas, metaphors, ironies. We're doing a lot of good stuff. What you guys need to be thinking about at home is, and this is going to be important for your papers, is other stories that feature similar ideas. It could be stories from the news, could be from life, could be books you've read, other classes you've taken, psychology stuff. I'm interested in the kind. I want you to connect what's going on in this play to something somewhere else in modern day, sort of, I don't know, comic books, songs, music, novels, TV shows, movies, what you're interested in, anime. I don't care if I've never heard of it. You tell me about it. And that's going to be really important in your papers upcoming. So I'm going to stop this video, and away we go.